It is only natural that we think of intimate or intimacy in sexual terms. After all, isn't that what the movies and TV and society have taught us all along, that it's all about sex? However, it means so much more than sex. The word intimate has been around since 1538 and came from the Latin word intimatus. The original meaning included deep-seated, most inward, make known, impress, and very familiar, just to name a few. Today's definition includes private, personal, closely acquainted, and familiar. The American Urban Dictionary defines intimate as when two people are within each other's minds without boundaries or involved in sex and something personal. I believe that intimacy is what we call the experience of really knowing and being known by another person. An intimate friend is someone we feel very close to. They know us at a deep level. If something happens that damages the intimacy with our friend, they feel distant from us. Or a person who doesn't know us intimately knows us on a superficial level. Thomas Keating wrote Intimacy with God. He was an American Catholic priest, monk, and was known for as one of the principal developers of centering prayer, which is a contemporary method of contemplative prayer. He was a prolific writer, and you will find many of his books very educational and informative. I have to admit that I was hooked with the first chapter entitled Making Friends with God. Why? Because trust allows us to make the intimate leap to encounter God at a deeper level within ourselves. I have worked with a spiritual mentor for over 20 years. She calls moving to a deeper level like taking an elevator down into a coal mine where it's dark and there's many fingers off of the main trail. We are moving into places within ourselves that have not seen the light of day for many years. It's the places we have to go to heal and unfold, to establish a greater relationship with the divine. Trust is at the heart of intimacy. The more we trust someone, the closer we let them get to us. The degree to which trust is compromised in a relationship is to the degree that intimacy evaporates from any relationship. Our deepening spiritual journey may be blocked if we carry negative attitudes or beliefs about God. And usually these attitudes and beliefs were created in childhood during early religious training. We may have thought that God was an angry father or a harsh judge or someone that had predestined our life. I can remember when I was a kid, I thought that God had a book for every person that lived in the world, and he had written out everything that was supposed to happen and we were supposed to do in our life in that book. Well, obviously, that isn't how I believe today. Or how many times have you heard someone say, it was God's will, someone to have cancer or a heart attack or an accident and die? Certainly doesn't have much room for free will that God gave us. Perverse religious attitudes and beliefs represent distorted spiritual values. It is true of most spiritualities and religions. If we still have some kind of beliefs, it is harder to develop a desire to begin a new spiritual journey. In Matthew 23, Jesus is talking to the disciples about the scribes and the Pharisees. He's discussing what they do and how it is wrong and hurts others. In verse 26, he says, "Clean first the inside of the cup and of the plate, so that the outside may be clean." What he's really saying here is that we must work on what lies and error beliefs within us, so that people around us see and know we're positive and loving to others, both internally and externally. Scripture tells us that our internal motivation is more important than our external acts. As we make the effort to deepen our relationship with God, our relationships with self and others, as well as God, continue to grow. People have all kinds of misconceptions about intimacy with God. The first misconception is intimacy is about sex. First, in the world that regularly defines intimacy as something sexual, it is difficult to conceptualize that it is possible to have intimacy with the divine that does not include sex. God is the Spirit that is one with each of us. To think why otherwise is to live in duality. Misconception number 2, intimacy should be easy. Intimacy with God does take a lot of effort and a lot of work. Many individuals won't take the time that requires. Some fear that creating a relationship might demand too much of their attention, or that they might have to do something they really don't want to do. This is usually caused by a fear that their day-to-day life will be consumed by God. They believe pursuing a spiritual journey will compromise who they are and their autonomy. Misconception number 3 is intimacy shouldn't involve waiting. We've been groomed by the media to expect quick results from little effort. We unconsciously put a stopwatch on God. It doesn't take long for me to get a hold of somebody else on my cell phone. Why does it take so long to get a hold of God? It's like handing a cell phone message and sending a cell phone message and getting one immediately after you've sent it. Trust me, sometimes our answers come days, weeks, or even months after we have sent the message. Concept number 4, intimacy with God is only for special people. Many people assume that being intimate with God is a special calling. They think the average person can't go there because they aren't a minister or a nun or a priest or a monk. Not true. Anyone can choose to have an intimate journey with God. I'll never forget when a friend approached me and asked me to pray for her husband who had bladder cancer, and she said, "You have a direct line to upstairs, I don't." I laughed and said, we all have a direct contact with God. Misconception number 5. It's too hard to figure out how to become intimate with God. You have to recreate your own Uber to get there, but opportunities abound. Your church offers classes. There's a marvelous library just outside these doors, and they have prayer ministers to assist you who can help guide you on your journey. If you truly choose to create intimate relationships with God, there is always a way and an abundance of assistance. All you have to do is ask. Helping us stay connected has become big business in our culture. Smartphones, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, X give us instant access to friends, family, work, and the world. But how much time do we actually spend meaningful face-to-face relationships? I was recently talking to a sergeant at the police department, and he said, people don't know how to communicate anymore because they're too busy on their phones looking at the screen waiting for the response to come back. They don't know how to talk with each other. But how much time do we actually spend, or of course, that has become an even more difficult due to COVID because we isolated ourselves for 2 years. And let's go one step further. How much effort do we invest in connecting with God? So how do we develop intimacy with the Creator? What is it that calls us to make a commitment to go deeper within? First, we have to have a yearning to know God in a greater and more personal way. In the Science of Mind text, Dr. Holmes tells us, "They who hunger and thirst after righteousness shall be filled. Is there anyone who does not have a soul hunger? Does not the spirit of man thirst after knowledge and understanding, yearn for truth and reality, as blind men yearn for light? And his hunger can only be satisfied with spiritual food as manna from heaven." If you have no desire to know God at a greater depth, then the assumption is you do not yearn for that more intimate relationship with God. Next, we must be willing to be vulnerable. I'll be the first person to tell you that's a tough one. Nobody likes to be vulnerable. Our natural instinct is to protect ourselves at all cost. Brene Brown, who I've talked with you before, an American psychologist, tells us embracing our vulnerabilities is risky, but not nearly as dangerous as giving up on love and belonging and joy. The experiences that make us the most vulnerable. Only when we are brave enough to explore the darkness will we discover the intimate power of light. There's that word darkness again. We have to be willing to look at what is hidden deep within that is preventing us from creating an intimate relationship with God. It takes courage and willingness to lay down what we are afraid of the most. Often that is what lays deepen within our subconscious. Next, we must be open. Ernest Holmes tells us that Christ stands at the door and knocks. We, however, must be open if we are to receive. If I'm standing with crossed arms, there's no way I'm going to be open to receive. A spiritual journey of intimacy is about receiving divine direction and input. It's about our willingness to be still and listen to the words within. The within may become the without. Remember the verse about cleaning the inside of the cup? It's the inside that we must be still and listen to the voice of the divine. And the only way we can do that is settling ourselves within ourselves. Once we have listened and heard the truth, we tend to become more honest with ourselves as well as others. Mother Teresa once said, "Honesty and transparency make you vulnerable. Be honest and transparent always. At my father's memorial service, as well as his 100th birthday, numerous people stepped forward to share stories about what an honest man he was. And by honesty, there was a transparency that all could see. He was not only honest with others, but he was honest with himself and about himself. He was willing to admit his mistakes and move on, and I used to love to hear him laugh at himself when he made a mistake. One day he looked at me and he said, "I'll never, ever forget Ted Kennedy for killing that girl at Chappaquiddick." And I looked at him and I said, "When did you become God?" And he laughed. Finally, we come to understand and know that on an intimate journey, we develop a great wisdom. Reverend Charles Fillmore, your founder, indicates in the revealing word, wisdom and divine understanding are attributes that come from the Spirit of Christ within us. The price that we must pay for the conscious attainment of divine wisdom and understanding is letting go of the personal self with its limited beliefs. Wisdom is such a gift. It includes intuitive knowing, the voice of God within, understanding and discrimination. It's so much more than book learning and knowledge. It's the inner knowingness that you are one with God. And there is no separation, no duality. You're probably wondering why I've quoted so many spiritual scholars this morning. And the answer is truly simple. I wanted you to know that the importance that the spiritual teachers placed on these qualities of yearning, vulnerability, openness, listening, honesty, and wisdom on our spiritual journey within. So just how do you get to that place of yearning? How do you commit to a spiritual journey that will take you to deeper places of healing and knowing? It means committing to intimate time every day to spend in study as well as prayer. First, make a commitment to have a quiet time every day. Determine the value intimacy with God will have in your life. View it equally as important as food for your body or as the oxygen that you breathe. Prioritize your time and schedule it on your calendar. Start slowly. Begin in short increments. Set aside a timer. Make it 10 minutes. And as you become more comfortable, you can increase it a minute at a time. Choose a special place that means something to you. Maybe your garden, a special chair in the living room. Place the things that are important to you in a spiritual space. Maybe it's a candle, a special picture, a stone. Whatever it is, make that space sacred for you. Select a spiritual book to read. There are so many Fillmore books in there within your library that you can get to understand the writings and what we're talking about. Or it could be the Course in Miracles, or the Bible, or an author that helps you understand your journey and helps you heal and grow. Use a journal to write down your thoughts and insights. It doesn't have to be lengthy and complicated. It might contain a quote or gratitude or an experience that has nudged you forward. I even carry a little journal in my pocket so that I don't forget when I hear something I want to remember. Be sure to pray and then move your feet. Remember, this is your time to have a conversation with God in your own words, because you have a pipeline directly to God. Know and embrace that it is already done in mind, in love, and in law. Don't forget to be patient with yourself. Change comes slowly. And be sure to spend time with others who support your beliefs. Join a discussion group, take a class, read a book, take a workshop. When I was in college, I took a couple of semesters of pottery or ceramics. I soon learned the process of breaking up the air bubbles in the clay. We take it out of the bin, make it into a ball, slap it on a stone, and then cut it with a piano wire. And we do this many times to get the pockets of air out of that slab. And then there was the process of actually learning to take that lump of clay and put it on the wheel and center it so that we could make something from it. It was a challenging process to learn how to shape the lump of clay on a wheel that I was turning with my leg. It was my task to determine what I was making: a cup, a vase, a pitcher, a glass. Maybe it was just going to be a simple slab. There were a multitude of projects that had to be completed for my class and for my ultimate grade. Now, before the piece that I had created could be placed in the kiln for fire, we would have to trim our creation. And if the instrument in our hand was not steady, if we couldn't hold it still, it could destroy the cup or the glass or the vase that we had just made. Then came the initial drying process, where the project was left to air dry for several days. We had to be patient. We had to be willing to wait. Then the item was placed in a fire at a very low temperature. This had to be done slowly, or the item might burst, because not all of the air was out of the clay. Next, the kiln fire is increased first to 350 degrees and then ultimately to 500. This is done to evaporate all of the water left in the item. There are a few more steps in the firing process. And sometimes the cup or bowl may shrink during the next stage, which is called vitrification process. This is when the clay is hardened and becomes tighter. This happens because of the melting of the various components of the clay, just like God melts the components within us. Ultimately, the clay is strengthened through this process of firing. While the clay cup or pot is an object, it goes through a similar process that we do when we're on our spiritual journey of intimacy with God. We are shaped, we are molded, then we go through many stages of firing to learn, to heal, and to grow. Ultimately, we are transformed by our faith and our trust in the divine. This is the truth in my life, and this is the truth in yours, and so it is.